On the flip side, you got gangs that don't care anything about rehabilitation. That's not even a concern. The gangs in prison, seem to discard all these facts. They discard these facts because the way of living for them is survival of the fittest. And that's a sensitive topic right now because the things that I want to share about that is something that must be treated lightly. And, because in today's world in prison, it's still the same thing. If you're revealing too much, you're snitching. If you're not revealing enough, then it's an injustice. It's a discredit to the facts that are going on in prison because, it's the fears of that dictate, like everything else in prison. Fears dictate everyone's performances in prison, even those who think they're the hardest or they think they're the strongest or the most influential or the most powerful. Fears are something that reside in every last one of us because, the hope of going home one day is always being tested and tempted because you're being subjected to the norms, what they call the norms of prison life. And the norms are people are allowing themselves, to be stuck in a form of ignorance, and not educating themselves to the things that are actually happening with their lives and what's going on around them on a day-to-day basis and how they can do certain things to combat those things that impact their chances of making the right choices and right decisions. It's a big catch-22. Gangs in California are very, very prevalent. And a lot of people, contrary to most popular belief, people think that, since this is something that has always existed, gangs have always existed in California, and, it streamlines into the prison system, and it actually plays a role in helping the industry maintain its numbers because people were kept in prison for so long, and at the beginning, the prison system, really was designed to make people believe that they were never going home again. And that was what was going on in the past. However, in today's society, the laws are changing to the point where even those who felt that they never had a chance at getting paroled, going home, that chance is very, very likely now because the laws have changed in recognizing that that inmates were given, black and brown inmates were given in California with disparate treatment. It was wrong. There were misapplications of law, but they're not going to say it like that. The resentencing process that they have in prison today allows for an inmate to file for a resentence who had a numerous amount of years to do before.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
And going back to the type of sentences that inmates were getting in California, a life sentence, even though it's with the possibility of parole, by the way they sentenced you and stack your base term with additional terms, consecutive terms, enhancements, lengthy, very, very lengthy additional terms and consecutive terms, prior prison convictions, and a lot of those things are now being overturned because they were misapplied from the very beginning. They're closing a lot of California prisons today. I don't know if the so-called prison industry thing is fading. They obviously made billions and billions of dollars off the inmate population, and with the amount of prisons in California prisons, it's probably still a these sentences again were virtual death sentences, because life with the possibility of parole, you give somebody 150 years, 160 years, life expectancy is probably, for some people 60-something years, and depending on their health and how they maintain their health inside the prison. So these virtual death sentences were done just so nonchalantly, just so normally, as if it was, something that was expected. It was almost like these life sentences are handed out almost like gift coupons or something. And it's a shame because they did it so freely, and they acted as if it didn't mean anything to them, but it meant everything to the inmate, who was confused and confused their parents so much that they don't know what to do because they have a system in place called the California Department of Corrections that, is an entity that are the gatekeepers for the criminals of California. And that entity is, supposed to be a legitimate operation or department that provides for adherence and compliance to the laws, rules, and regulations of the Constitution of the United States and California. These things are often circumvented, and you have to challenge either receiving your rights and your entitlements when you're already entitled. But then again, they strip us of a lot of our rights up in here for some of the most minuscule infractions. And this situation is ongoing. It's a sad affair because right now, they weaponize a whole lot of the regulations and the programs, and they weaponize inmates against inmates. They got a lot of inmates who really are intelligent, but you got a lot of ignorant inmates in prison, who play these roles of controlling inmates for the cops. And then you have inmates who posture and act like they're a gangster or a tough guy, but in all essence, they're informants. They're people who work for the California Department of Corrections, and they make it simple and possible for themselves, as if their positions are of power and that influence makes them out to be something or somebody. But people get used at all forms of levels when it comes to the Department of Corrections, because the California Department of Corrections is aware of every single person that's in the system. And just like the rest of the world, they keep track of who's capable of doing this, who's capable of doing that, who's not willing to do this, who's not willing to do that. These guys are scared. These guys are not afraid. These guys are crazy. These guys are not that crazy, So it's like it's an easy way for CDC to utilize inmates and allow inmates to have control over other inmates, despite the fact there's rule and regulations that says that no inmate is supposed to assume control over no other inmates. And California has a tendency to...
You have 60 seconds remaining.
There's a rock-throwing hand that stays behind the back, the invisible hand, that creates a whole lot of the turmoil. And I dub California Department of Corrections, CDCR, as chaos, destruction, confusion repeatedly, because this is what it does to keep the madness going on and on and on.
Okay, Clarence, you said CDCR means what now?
In my terms, it's California Department of Corrections is what it actually means, but it actually represents chaos, destruction, and confusion repeatedly. And these are some of the tactics and some of of the methods that are used by CDCR to keep people distracted and not focus on what the industry itself requires to function and to make profits, while the inmates are confused about a lot of things that go on in prison and have to struggle to identify with how to deal with the situation at hand. And it's so clever of CDCR, and it's so sad because inmates are supposed to be, you know, they say inmates are held to a higher standard, but inmates don't give themselves credit enough for being intelligent and being smart enough to see things for what it actually is and continue to allow, you know, ourselves to be, you know, hoodwinked and bamboozled and tricked into these situations to where we're furnishing and supplying these prison officials and this industry, you know, with the very thing that they need to get rich off of us while we suffer, you know, at slave wages. And it is sad because, you know, I'm not really preaching. I'm just trying to spell out the things that are very prevalent in the California prison system today. So, and I wanted to reiterate a couple things because let's not get ahead of ourselves and take this as the gospel. We're not preaching. I'm not preaching to expect you to believe everything that's being said. I'm only coming from the heart because over the years, California prisons have not been open to media exposure. California prisons have locked the doors and the windows and the vents and everything else to keep people from seeing what's going on inside. They don't allow it because for the naked eye of society may be able to see the game that's being played in here, whereas the inmates who put on these blindfolds and are blinded to the facts that go on in prison and allow themselves, all of us, we allow ourselves to be subjected to the conditions, you know, that are being set forth that are really not in compliance with the rules and the regulations and the state and federal laws. And as long as we allow ourselves to be ignorant to these facts, you know, we don't see clearly. You know, our focus is diminished, and we become the tokens of exactly what prison needs to continue to stay open, stay functioning, stay making money off of us and keeping us enslaved. We paid our price. We paid our dues. We've done our punishment. But, you know, California has this thing where, you know, their politics is different from the politics in prison. They're playing this situation on a larger scale than people realize it because the public is unaware. The public are spending so much time trying to live above their means, trying to meet wages to survive in society, to keep a roof over their head, to keep transportation, to live up to the gas prices and the food prices and mortgages and, you know, all the different things that one has to do to function in society. So they're also being blinded to the things that are going on as well, because if they only knew where their money is being spent and how their money is being spent, not only would they be enraged, they would probably take some course of action to rectify the matter. They would probably take an action